It is time to bury Mississippi State. An opportunity that normally doesn't present itself is there. Now Ole Miss has to take advantage of it. We'll tell you how.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And also, I want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. And today, yes, I do know that Ole Miss plays Louisiana Monroe this weekend, and Ole Miss right now is a 35.5-point favorite in that game. But we have a short week until the Egg Bowl happens, and I'm going to spend some time this week talking about the Egg Bowl because if I go deep dive into Louisiana Monroe, nobody's going to watch those videos. So we're going to talk a little bit about Mississippi State, and we're going to get a jump start on the Egg Bowl as well, knowing full well that we're not looking over Louisiana Monroe. We will have the key segment in the third segment today. But this is a rare, unique opportunity for Ole Miss to absolutely bury Mississippi State to the point where they become irrelevant, like Auburn is to Alabama right now, like Georgia Tech is to Georgia right now. That level of irrelevancy has a chance to come to this rivalry starting this year. Now, Mississippi State made an emotional decision to fire Zach Arnett 10 games after being announced the head coach for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Now, I get that Mississippi State had to make that. They were correcting a mistake that they made a year earlier, and we all know the circumstances of what gave Zach Arnett that job. And Mike Leach I'm a huge fan of Mike Leach and always will be. But after that happened, Mississippi State did not handle that well. Period. They hired Zach Arnett. He was in over his head, and you have a situation to where Mississippi State is going to miss a bowl game. Now, like they went with losing records multiple years, but they're going to miss a bowl game for the first time in a while, likely. And to me, Ole Miss has an opportunity because Ole Miss should have won the game in Oxford last year, and there was a special circumstances. Weirdness happened. State won the game. But even the most ardent of State fans would tell you that Ole Miss had the better team that night, and Ole Miss should have won that game. They didn't, but it happens. Every Mississippi State fan knows that this year in Starkville, they can't count on what happened a year ago to happen again. And they know that Ole Miss is going to be up for this game for what it means. Lane Kiffin has a chance to do what Johnny Vaught did. Now, here's the recent history of the game. You go back to 2014, 2015, those areas. That is when all of this toxicity started. And I'm going to tell everybody a little bit of a story in the second segment about what is happening. Because we joked whenever Mississippi State was doing what they were doing, that they were willing to set their own program on fire to take down Ole Miss. And that's exactly what happened. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you look at the overall record, Ole Miss leads 64-47, and the that's not even the battle for the Golden Edge number. That's the total series record with 6 ties. It's at the point where if I live to be 100, I'll never see a day where Mississippi State has more wins in this series than me. And it's just period. And there was a period from 1947 to 1970 where Johnny Vaught lost to Mississippi State one time and 3 of the ties were in there. And there was a period like 1983 to 1993, I think Billy Brewer lost to him once or twice. Those are 2 periods where Ole Miss just kind of buried Mississippi State, just kind of put them in the ground and just, hey, y'all go be cute. We're going to go do what we're going to do. Now, when Johnny Vaught was here, that was the glory days. That's when Ole Miss was trying to do really big things. Billy Brewer was just trying to lift Ole Miss up from the doldrums that was the 70s. But Billy Brewer was able to dominate that game as well as Johnny Vault. This has a chance. This will be 3 out of 4 for Lane Kiffin if Lane Kiffin wins in Starkville. Ole Miss should be anywhere from a 10 to 15 point favorite in that game, if not more, depending on what happens this weekend. Ole Miss, if they just go take care of business, they're going to be on their way to their second 10-win season in 3 years. They're going to be in an Access Bowl likely for the 4th time in 10 years. This program is in a different spot than it was, and it's realistically starting with that 2014 season when Ole Miss and Mississippi State were both ranked. But like I said, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But Ole Miss has 5 or something of the top 7 recruits in the state of Mississippi. Mississippi State is not a recruiting force at all in the state of Mississippi this year. They are not a overly productive football program. I mean, they have that 7-3 win against Arkansas, but they have not been good in football all year this year. This has been a year to forget. And we can talk about what it was, but Mississippi State, on top of everything else, is not aware of this new era of college football. They want to keep doing things the same way, and they were going to bowl games, and they were happy. When Dan Mullen was there doing all the chirping and getting under Hugh Freeze's skin, that was different football than now. Now, there's no NIL money in Starkville. They use most all of it to try and protect their roster as best they can, and there's not a lot of it there to go get new players. There, Mississippi State's recruiting is down. Now they've gone out and got commitments, during the summer whenever they had that 2-week period. Everybody remembers when I put the video out about Mississippi State recruiting being dead. They went out and got 3 commitments, like bang, 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 real quick. They started to have a little bit of momentum. Everybody talked about the Arnett effect and all of that. Well, now all of a sudden, Braylon Burnside is decommitted. I think P.J. Woodard from Macomb has decommitted. J.J. Harrell has pretty much, I think he's burnt the bridge in Oxford with what has gone on. He's kind of like a reverse C.J. Johnson type deal there. And Jimothy Lewis is just still kind of sitting out there, and we have to pay attention to what's going on there as well. This Mississippi State program is not in a good place. You're going to have back-to-back transition classes because last year was a transition class. This is going to end up being a transition class as well. So that's going to be at least a 4-year rebuild, at least at a minimum, even in the age of the transfer portal. Look at what Deion Sanders did. He brought in all new players in there to get the 1-11 Colorado stink off of them. He's going to throw up a 5-7 or a 6-6 in year 1. It is going to take time. And while that is all happening, Ole Miss is at the second highest level of football it's ever been at. It's recruiting better than it has in my lifetime in the state of Mississippi. Even at the high school level, they are known as the Portal King. The talent is better than they have had at Ole Miss in my lifetime. They're winning 10 games a year. The only games they're losing are against Georgia and Alabama, and people are trying to say that Lane Kiffin can't win the big one because they can't beat number 1. Well, okay. They can beat everybody else. And Ole Miss is in line to go to an Access Bowl for the 4th time in 10 years, potentially. That's 40% of all years that have had Access Bowls. Ole Miss has taken part in that. This is a situation where one program is way up here right now, and one program is way down here. I joke about all the time that right now Mississippi State is Vanderbilt without the degree. And that's kind of the case at the moment. I mean, they even have Mike Wright running around throwing passes. And if both teams play their best, I mean, Ole Miss would have to play really poorly and really not clean for this Mississippi State game to even be a dogfight. And now, with Mississippi State getting ready for Southern Mississippi this weekend, which that is going to be Southern Miss's Super Bowl. I've said this all year. This would be the equivalent of Ole Miss scheduling Memphis 5 days before the Egg Bowl. It is going to be Southern Super Bowl. If Mississippi State can win that game, they have to turn around and get ready for the Ole Miss Rebels. How much energy are they willing to put into it? How they react to the Ole Miss game is probably going to depend on how the Southern game goes. if that's a 4-quarter game to where they're playing against Southern Mississippi at 3:00 on Saturday in the fourth quarter, there's probably not a whole lot of belief in that Mississippi State locker room. I think this is the perfect opportunity, just judging about everything that is going on. One program's in complete disarray, the other's at the second highest standing that they've ever been at. This is an opportunity to bury Mississippi State, period. Anyway, thank you for subscribing. We've gotten over 5,000 subscribers and it continues to go up. Please do us a favor and subscribe to the podcast. If you have already, tell a friend. If you haven't, please do. And if you listen to one of our other mediums, go over to the YouTube page and give a subscription. We'd appreciate that very much indeed. But right now, I do want to talk to you for a second. We spend a lot of time together, and you and I, and we get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for the connection that we have, and today I want to chat about something a little bit more personal. Actually, probably a lot more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply of ED medications. Do you realize what that means? That means bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issues. You're covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, and Revulsio. It's prescription. And it's possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember, use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues have caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I've ordered most of my daily meds with a year supply. I've also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies, and I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get some peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you where you're located. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your purchase. College football season is here, and this season Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff. Live each Friday, Locked On will go live at 11 a.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. All right, in the first segment, we talked about what is presented for Ole Miss and why Ole Miss can bury Mississippi State this year, and this rivalry has a chance to get very one-sided. We're talking what Alabama does to Auburn, what Georgia does to Georgia Tech. Heck, go back to when Tuberville was winning like 6-7 in a row against Alabama. That type of a run is possible for Lane Kiffin, and that is because of a lot of stuff that we've talked about. Now, why is this important? Why is this being talked about on the Tuesday before ULM game when we're going to do the keys in the third segment, everybody? So just be patient for that. But the reason it's important is honestly because of what they did. And if everybody that has been a fan for a significant period of time, there was an investigation by the NCAA about 10 years ago, and Mississippi State led the charge, even helping investigate Ole Miss along the way. If you look at what happened, a Mississippi State writer wrote a very poorly illustrated book, Flim Flam, the truth behind the faith culture that led to explosive NCAA investigation of Ole Miss football. Then you have articles, Ole Miss got placed on 3 years probation. NCAA hits Ole Miss with additional year of bowl ban and scholarship restrictions. And Jim Harbaugh and Michigan came down to Ole Miss and was recruiting plays actively off the roster. And there was a meal at IHOP where Jim Harbaugh came down in the private plane to get Shea Patterson, and he was ultimately successful. That adds a different element of what's going to happen in this football game. In 2014, Mississippi State was ranked number 1 in the country until they played Alabama. They were ranked in the playoff rankings. They were as high as they were going to be, and this was as good as it was going to get. They had Dak Prescott. They had the whole 9 yards. They had a really good football team. Ole Miss was also ranked in those first playoff rankings. And Ole Miss ended up losing to LSU. The Laquan Treadwell thing happened against Auburn where he broke his leg. And Ole Miss got absolutely boat raced against the Arkansas Razorbacks. I think it was like 30-0. And Mississippi State was a win away from going to the college football playoff. Now, whether or not they would have actually gone there, I'm talking about perspective. To their fan base, they thought it was true. And they played Ole Miss, and Ole Miss had just gone through this thing. Ole Miss beat the heck out of them that day. With Bo Wallace on one ankle, the whole 9 yards, Ole Miss won that game fairly easily. And it was at that moment to where Mississippi State started to rally their propagandists behind the scenes and started to really work with the NCAA. They were going to burn down Ole Miss's house, even if it meant their house went down too. They had decided to do it. They made the emotional decision. And in 2015, Ole Miss ended up going to a Sugar Bowl, beating Mississippi State in Starkville. Ole Miss won the Sugar Bowl that year. And after that Sugar Bowl was there, Ole Miss got a commitment from A.J. Brown. They also got I think their notice of infractions letter was delivered 1 week before school because this was all planned. This was all orchestrated. And from that moment on, Mississippi State's program has been on a downward spiral. It's been a slow downward spiral, but it's been a downward spiral ever since that Egg Bowl in 2014. Ole Miss went to 2 Access Bowls. They went to a Peach Bowl, got blown out by TCU, but that TCU team was really, really good. Mississippi State went to the Orange Bowl and got beat by Georgia Tech. They were both in Access Bowls in the first year of Access Bowls. Since then, Mississippi State has not gone back. They've honestly not sniffed one. The closest they would have come is if they beat Ole Miss in 2015, but they didn't. But their program has slid slowly and down to irrelevancy. And that's where they're existing right now. Right now, out of the 16 teams that are coming into the SEC, they are 15th. Pretty easily 15th. And they realize that. So they're making emotional decisions because they can see the landscape of what is actually happening, but they have no idea why it's happening. So they wanted to bring Ole Miss down, and they at least could get Ole Miss down to their level, and hopefully they can get over them that way. Well, Ole Miss now is on their back. They're going to Access Bowls again with another coach. They completely did not break the program. They did not send them into a tailspin. They did not do to them what the NCAA did to SMU in 1987. Mississippi State, though, has continued their downward trend. They've gotten rid of a coach after 2 years with 2 wins over Ole Miss, by the way, because it was not about Ole Miss anymore for that program. They hired, after Lane Kiffin got hired and Ole Miss got all the pub, they fired Joe Moorhead, who was 2-0 in that game, and hired Mike Leach. And like I said, good for Mike Leach. That was a tragedy what happened. But after it happened again, they made an emotional hire with Zach Arnett. Zach Arnett is not even going to get to coach against Ole Miss one time because he got 10 games. So in the past 6 years, let's say since 2017, since the Egg Bowl in 2017, when the mayor of Starkville was born, A.J. Brown, you have Dan Mullen, who was replaced by Joe Moorhead, who was replaced by Mike Leach, who was replaced by Zach Arnett, who will be replaced by a 5th coach. That is 5 coaches in 7 years? One of them is not their fault. And I completely understand that. But what happened around it is their fault. And it's another reason why Ole Miss just has a chance to absolutely bury Mississippi State. And the revenge in this game will be so sweet. I think Ole Miss fans they need to go to Mississippi State. They need to go to Starkville this year. If there's any year to go, this is the year to go. If you go to the Game Time app, gametime.co, and a new subscriber goes on there and signs up, you get $20 rebate. If you look at the prices of it, that's about a get-in price for 1 ticket. So it's almost a BOGO to go to the Ole Miss Mississippi State game this year. You can get 50-yard line seats in the lower bowl for about $80. They're not going to show up. They're not coming. They're not doing everything. This is a perfect opportunity for Ole Miss to take over that stadium. This is a perfect opportunity for Ole Miss to neutralize the cowbells in Davis Wade. This is the perfect opportunity for the loudest "we just beat the hell out of you" that has ever been sung in that stadium. I think a Thanksgiving takeover is something that Ole Miss should do. Ole Miss fans should plan right now to go to the gametime.co app, get a couple of tickets, and go watch that ball game. It's probably 83% probability for FPI right now for Ole Miss to win that game. I think State has like a 17% chance. Ole Miss is going to be favored by 15 points. And whether Will Rogers or anybody else comes back, that's probably not going to change the problems that they have. I think people should enjoy this and enjoy watching Mississippi State get buried because of what I just told you in this segment. This game is actually the revenge for the stunt they pulled 7 years ago. This game is actually that revenge. This is where Ole Miss fans have the opportunity to go in there and just completely bury them and make them irrelevant as revenge for what they did to Ole Miss 10 years ago. Writing the book, the whole 9 yards, the Tom Mars. Tom Mars, by the way, is the attorney for Jim Harbaugh. If that's not perfect, I don't know what it is. But that is the key to that Mississippi State game. We have a chance to go completely take over Davis Wade Stadium. Wear our navy. Go absolutely nuts. Because that would hurt them more than anything else. You see, Mississippi State has Ole Miss as their only rival. And to the point where Ole Miss having LSU as an additional rival, they get offended by it because they don't understand that concept. Ole Miss can have Mississippi State and LSU as a rival because Mississippi State is absolutely a rival. Egg Bowl is one of the best rivalries in college football. But the fact that Ole Miss has an additional rivalry, they can't understand that because they don't have one. They don't have enough room in their heart to hate another team as much as they hate Ole Miss, to the point where they were willing to destroy their own program just to take down Ole Miss in the process. And here it is. This is the game where Ole Miss gets to go down there in front of all of them and show them how much they failed, to make them kind of eat it. Steve Robertson and his crew that worked so diligently to bring down Ole Miss, to let them see exactly where they sit. This is that opportunity for Ole Miss. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about the keys to the ULM game. There's not many of them. Ole Miss is like a 35.5-point favorite in this game. And if I would have done a video completely about keys and what to watch for and all of that about ULM, nobody would watch it. So that's the reason we're talking about the Egg Bowl early. So we will see exactly what happens in the Egg Bowl. But the opportunity there, everything is trending one direction. I mean, Mississippi State can't even count the Southern game as a guaranteed win this weekend. They like to think they have better players, but after what they just did, I mean, I would at least take Southern in the points in that game. Should be interesting indeed. I do want to let you know that these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. Oh, is this for Mississippi State? You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. Get an IL. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right team faster and for free. You know, we're all into our 20th year of creating a social media profile. We all know how to do it. So go to LinkedIn and create that social media profile. Then add your job and a purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're in fact hiring. It's got simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. You know, if you hire the right team member, it's the same as hiring the right football coach. If you hire the wrong football coach, you're going to be doing the same process in 3 years or heck, in 10 games. But if you hire the right team member, they can have a positive and measurable impact on your business, just like the right football coach can have you in the conversation for the playoff. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Rebels play the ULM Warhawks Saturday at 11 p.m. Central Time. This is your last chance to catch a home game with David Kellum and the Rebels home team crew as the Ole Miss Rebels look to continue their run. You can catch every play of the action on SiriusXM or on the SXM app, searching Ole Miss Rebels. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about ULM, because this is a situation. I think Ole Miss is a 99% favorite against ULM. And the reason you're 99 is because they don't do 100. Ole Miss has a better football team than ULM. This is pretty simple. Keys to victory versus ULM. Play a clean game. ULM cannot beat you unless you give them help. That means do not turn the ball over. Do not get penalties. Do not get like extracurricular type stuff. Do not give them first downs. Make them earn it. If that happens, you will be all right as well. Number two, and this keys to victory is not necessarily keys to victory against ULM, but it's keys to victory when you're looking at the Egg Bowl 5 days later, is stay healthy in the game. Get a lead, get the starters out. This needs to be a game that Walker Howard plays a good bit. Period. And you need to have Matt Jones and those guys playing a good large portion of the second half of the football game. Play clean to where you can get there, be up to as much as you can be, and to stay healthy against ULM. Get them off the field, get them wrapped in bubble wrap. And number three is bring your own energy to the game. And this is an absolutely bring your own energy game. It's the last home game. This is senior night. There might be a little bit of stuff, even though it's a day game, it's an 11 a.m. game. But that's going to be a place that's a little bit sleepy this weekend. And this is a game, Ole Miss being a 35.5-point favorite, there's not really a way to get around that. If you look at the line, there it is. Ole Miss 35.5-point favorite. The over-under is at 61. They're probably what are they thinking? 49 to 10 would cover over on the line, but it will be under. So maybe 52 to 17 or something like that is what they're thinking. That's kind of what they're thinking is the score. So we'll see exactly what happens. Looks like Jackson Dart. I haven't heard anything about it. Billy Liucci basically killed rumors that Lane was even a candidate at A&M. I told you on yesterday's podcast, he likely was not. That's just a worst fit ever type situation. People think just because Texas A&M have money, they can have whatever they want, and they think that money can give you whatever you want, and that's not always the case. If you look at Texas A&M's history, no matter who is coaching that team, they're going 8-4. I mean, R.C. Slocum was pretty good a little bit. Jackie Sherrill was pretty good a little bit. But their most famous thing when it comes to football is probably the Trans A&M, because they bought Eric Dickerson a car and then he went to SMU. That's probably the most famous thing about Texas A&M. But Ole Miss absolutely should bury Mississippi State. This is their opportunity. It's on the table. Ole Miss can bury them for several years by putting it away this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. There's going to be some that are going to be like, hey, rally for the kids and all of that. But at the end of the day, the first bad thing that happens to Mississippi State, whenever you have a situation like this, they quit playing. They quit playing. Same thing could happen against Southern Miss. If Southern Miss jumps on Mississippi State, Southern Miss is going to win the football game outright. The only hope that Mississippi State has in that game is that they front run, because if something bad happens, it's going to snowball. Anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Anyway, that's why Ole Miss should bury Mississippi State, period. We'll see you tomorrow. Hotty toddy.